Good evening, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves here in Kentucky, and back home in Maryland is my man, John Webster. John, take it.
Gary, man, thanks for the introduction. How you doing, man? And another great week in sports.
Yep. I mean, we call these the dog days, but there's still plenty to talk about, when it comes to sports.
Man, I'm looking forward to the topics because I think we're going to do a little football, a little baseball, maybe do a little boxing. I'm excited, man. Wherever we go with this, it's a good time. And Gary, we almost forgot, man. We got to say hey to our producer, John Pitt. Big John, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Greetings, fellas. Greetings.
Hey, man, John Pitt, we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much.
You know, John is really great, Gary. It's hard to believe, as talented and experienced as he is, the great job he does at everything he does, he's a Cowboy fan. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Let's start the show, fellas. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm gonna move on from John's left-handed compliment, damning with faint praise and all that stuff. And get right into it. We appreciate you, John. That's all I'm
Yes,
saying.
we do. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, it's August. We're still a couple of weeks away from the pennant races, heating up for real, but they're heating up for real regardless, especially in the American League East, where the New York Yankees they are red hot. They've overtaken the Boston Red Sox. They've made up from what I saw was 12 and a half games since the beginning of July. To me, that reminds me of 1978 when they made up a 14-game lead and Bucky Bleepin' Dent, came and broke the Red Sox heart. This might not be the same thing, but it's getting pretty close. And the Yankees have gotten hot, gained so much ground, and now they're chasing down the Tampa Bay Rays atop the AL East. All right, John, what do you think is going to happen there? We'll get into the other divisions in a second. But that's the one that has really drawn a lot of attention because the Yankees look dead and buried in early June. I mean, I think they had lost something like 9 out of 10 games. They had fallen something like 6.5 games behind the division lead. And then they fell even further. Again, for the wild card we're talking about, they were down by 12.5 games. And now they look like they might win the division. Do you agree?
Hey, they are on fire, Gary. They are absolutely positively on fire. I would not bet against them. I'm pretty comfortable in saying they're at worst going to be in the wild card. At worst, they are just unbelievable. And then when they're cooking on all cylinders, man, I mean, you're going to see Wiley, what's his name, Aaron Judge at one time. Then you're going to see Giancarlo Stanton at another time. That's a rough lineup, man. That's rough. And now they added Rizzo to the equation, playing first base. They're tough, man. And the pitching is hanging in there. You got Garrett Cole. He's, if I'm not mistaken, just came back off disabled list. Yeah, he's going to be tough. Chapman's going to get himself right. I know he had problems and he's blown some saves. And same with Zach Britton, who was taking Chapman's place. But man, they are cooking on all cylinders, Gary. They are something to deal with. Tampa Bay is up, I think, by 4.5 games. I'm not sure they can hold on to it. I'm really not sure. And get this, Gary. If you're in the playoffs, if they are a wild card, do you want to see them for one game in a wild card, Gary? Do you want to play the New York Yankees in a one-game wild card, knowing it probably is going to be at Yankee Stadium and that place is going to be going nuts the whole night?
Oh, no. I mean, the Yankees are a team I don't want to face right now. The thing to consider, though, this is why I still believe it's Tampa Bay's division to lose because they're almost 30 games over 500. They've got something like a run differential, I want to say, of like plus 150. So they've got the offense, and they built that offense basically to compete with the Yankees. The Yankees had to pick up the pace a little bit. That's why they traded for all those bats. Some of those guys are starting, and guys like Judge and Garrett Cole, they were hurting. Now they're healthy, and now you're seeing what they can really do. It's going to be interesting in that division to see if the Rays can hold on, and really if the Yankees pitching can come through in the clutch in September and beat them, because again, Tampa Bay is still probably one of the best kept secrets in baseball. I mean, they're coming off a World Series. Everybody thought that they might slip a little bit in the division, but they're still doing the same thing, and they're probably playing even better. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder, but again, that's one you have to watch it, because the Yankees, my goodness, I mean, you're talking about Rizzo. I mean, you're talking about Judge, Giancarlo, and all that. They are a force to be reckoned with.
There's something else, man. And Tampa Bay, great team. They do it the old-fashioned way. They built through the minor league system, and then when the player gets too good, to get rid of and go back to the minor league and get some more players, man. They do it the old-fashioned way, and there's different ways to do it. The Yankees, of course, they go out and they put a lot of money out there and everything, but it's going to be interesting. The one thing in this dynamic, Tampa Bay has the Yankees' number. If they play, I think they have a few more times to play each other. Tampa Bay holds on and then has to play the Yankees. The advantage probably goes to Tampa Bay. But if Tampa Bay is not able to win some of these other games and the Yankees keep staying on fire, I think the last 10 games, the Yankees are like, what, 9-1?
Yeah, 9-1. One have won 9 in a row.
Oof.
Before we move on to the other divisions, at the bottom of the division is a team that, if I'm looking at their numbers here, they've lost 18 in a row, which made my jaw drop when I saw that this morning. I didn't know it had gotten that bad up the road, John. What do you say about that?
Let's go O's. Let's go O's.
Remember,
let's go O's.
John Pitt, does memory serve me correctly? Did somebody say that they would they would win 51 out of their final 60 games and overtake the division? It seemed like I remember that. Am I correct?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let me tell you how talented the Orioles are right now. Are you two ready for this?
How about the AL West, John Pitt? Woo.
Hey, let me tell you how talented they are. Let me tell you how talented the Orioles are. The Orioles have won 38 games this year, and they're also 38 games out of first place. Name another team that can do that. 38 wins and 38 games out of first place.
John, you really want to hitch your wagon to that? Actually, yeah, you would hit your wagon to that one.
Hey,
but again, that's fun. That's fine. That's why we talk about this kind of stuff, John.
I'm gonna tell you right now, tomorrow, I'm wearing black and orange. Orioles all day, every day.
All right. Hey, support your team, man. I'm still wearing red, red and white for the Nationals, even though, they've got talent that actually is playing pretty good, even though, they've fallen out of it after all those trades. Well, okay, here we are. We're in August again. This is another month that normally we probably wouldn't even be paying attention to, because, say whatever about our love of the NFL. Nobody watches preseason football games, maybe outside of Washington. But the second week preseason, Cam Newton has looked good for the Patriots. Hopefully, that'll carry over into the regular season. So, what do you think, John? Even though he's out for a couple of days, what do you think about Cam's performance so far?
I think Cam has had he played really well the other night when they played Philadelphia. That was a good performance for him. The first preseason game of the year when they played Washington, that it wasn't really bad, but it wasn't anything really good either. There are a lot of fans there that want Mac Jones to get in there, but Belichick, in my opinion, Coach Belichick is going to go with Cam Newton. I think that's the right move. Mm-hmm. And, it's his year. It's his make or break season. I think Cam Newton is going to start. And I'm hoping he has a really good season, because we all know that I'm a New England Patriots fan. They're right up there with me with the greatest college football team of all time, which is Notre Dame. So we all know.
Alabama. Excuse me.
So we know that New England, a lot of people are
Florida.
They're thinking that
Ohio State.
they're thinking that New England's going to struggle again because of last year. They had a great defense last year, but the offense really didn't do anything much. After Cam Newton had a COVID, he struggled, somewhat. I'm looking forward to him this year to really do some things. They made some moves in the offseason to strengthen up their offensive line. I'm really expecting them to come back and retake control of the Eastern Division, and it should be the way it always has been, New England in first place. That's what I see.
Yeah, well, I always feel like even with a quarterback like Cam Newton, that in Belichick's system, it's going to take a year of adjustment. Last year was definitely one yet you kind of throw out just because of what it was. There were no preseason games last year. This year there are only 2 or 3 or whatever, depending on who's playing. But I think with more time to learn the system, more time to understand, John, what he needs to do and what he shouldn't do. When you're that big, when you still have that kind of arm strength, even though you can run the ball, just because you can run the ball and run it effectively doesn't mean you should. It's what got him killed in Carolina. It can't get him killed in New England. I think Belichick has made that clear to him. It's made clear to him, play within yourself. Don't do too much. Essentially, stay in your lane and play. I mean, granted, preseason football is what it is. It's vanilla. It's very, very basic, but I am encouraged by what I've seen out of him.
And also keep in mind, you bring up a good point, staying healthy. Josh McDaniel is the offensive coordinator there. And he is, I'm biased, I'll admit that, but I think he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. And I think he's going to develop a system. He had it going last year, but it was a new thing. Like you said, it takes a year or so in New England. I think he's going to have something that Cam Newton is going to be able to flourish in this year. I think they've looked at his strong points. They've looked at what his weak points are. One of the things Cam Newton likes to do is, as far as that defense, he's going to read a couple of spots, and he's going to get rid of that ball. We're not going to have 4 and 5 different reads, and there's nothing wrong with that. But he's a quarterback that wants to get rid of that ball a lot sooner than a lot later. And again, the line has been strengthened. They've made some acquisitions in the offseason. He's going to have better protection this year. I'm looking for some great things from the Patriots, man. I'm looking to be back where they were back, what they call the glory days, Gary. And they weren't too long ago. And my God, I see it coming back again, Gary. It's coming back. New England Patriots are one of the absolute best run teams in the NFL.
All right, let's hope so. Hey, jumping around to some other things, since we're talking about football, and in these parts, everybody's paying attention to what's happening up the road in Cincinnati with the Bengals. Washington beat them over the weekend, and Jared Patterson looked impressive. Defense would be good. Are we reading too much, John, into Patterson right now, or is it just one of those things we see potential with him? And from the little bit that I saw, that Fitzpatrick actually looked fairly decent.
Well, let's start with Fitzpatrick first. I think Fitzpatrick is going to be Fitzpatrick and not Fitztragic. I think he's going to also be magical some games as well too. He's going to be the starting quarterback. There are some that are wondering, is there a quarterback controversy? I don't think so. I think Fitzpatrick is going to be the starting quarterback. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted, though. He's going to have some games where, Fitzpatrick has, he's thrown you into some games and he's thrown you out of some games. And he's going to have a couple of those. But I think Washington as a team, I think they're looking good. Their defense, I mean, come on, man. You got Sweat on one side, you got Young on the other side. Do you want to be looking at that as a quarterback? Those 2 bookends coming at you. You got John Allen in the middle. They're tough. They strengthened up their cornerback situation in the offseason. You still have what's the guy's name? Landon Collins. That was he's coming back. I think he's going to play even better this year.
And you drafted Jamin Davis from Kentucky.
Yeah, and he's going to help a lot too.
Yeah.
They're going to have a good. I think they're going to be good, Gary. I don't know how good. I mean, all jokes aside, the Cowboys are going to be something to be reckoned with this year. They're not going to have another season like they did last year. They're saying Dak Prescott is on pace to start Week 1. He's ready. It's going to be a rough. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough division. It's going to be really tough. The first question you asked me about Jared Patterson, man, I'm so happy for that kid because he's a local kid. I want to see him do well, and he is doing well. I think he's going to make the team. He had a 34-yard kickoff return. He scored a touchdown. I think he's going to make the team, and not just make the team, Gary. I think he's going to play a role where he can help the team. You got Antonio Gibson, and you got McKissick back there, but this kid can play. This kid can get things done, and in the words of one of the legendary sports broadcasters in this area, Rick Doc Walker, he called Patterson a baby Brian Mitchell, a baby B. Mitch. That's a heck of a compliment.
Yeah.
And, hey, I think he has a chance to do a lot of good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
And I'd say maybe more this year as opposed to recent years. I think it's because of things like because we didn't have preseason football last year that we're paying attention to this. At least I am,
Yep.
And it's good to see some of these performances for some of these guys. I mean, preseason games are basically to fill out your roster. It's not to see, oh well, how good is Tom Brady going to be, or how good is Cam Newton going to be, but it's different this year for Newton because of the year he had last year, because of his recent rash of injuries that sidelined him in Carolina. But for the other guys to make the roster, again, the little bit that I saw of Washington's game, guys like Patterson, that's why you watch, because you want to see who could be a difference maker, who could be that guy, as opposed to the ones that we look to, like the Ryan Fitzpatricks. And I hope that Fitzpatrick, for obvious reason, has a good year. But he's a guy. I always say, you don't have to be a star; just manage the game well. Teams have won Super Bowls and won playoff games by quarterbacks that manage the game well. Trent Dilfer. I'm gonna say to an extent Mark Rippon back in the day, but Mark Rippon had an MVP year. I still don't think he was a superstar.
He was slinging it, Gary.
Yeah, he was. But of course, when you only get sacked 11 times in a season, I mean, you have a chance to make plays. That's still an amazing stat in a 16-game season that a team only gave up 11 regular season sacks, which does say something, of course, about an offensive line. But yeah, Fitzpatrick, just, again, stay in your lane. Do what you do best. Manage the game. Don't try to do too much. And say, oh yeah, speaking of preseason, there's this little interesting stat that I saw today. I don't know if it even matters, but the Ravens have won 19 straight preseason games. Is that anything we should really be, I don't know, geeked up about? Because we are talking about preseason.
Well, far be it for me to rain on anybody's parade, Gary, and we won't use the other term, as far as cornflakes, what you could do with the cornflakes. So I'll just say I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. Congratulations to the Ravens. They have 19 preseason wins. They have tied the record with the great Green Bay Packers and Vince Lombardi. But what it comes down to, Gary, do those preseason wins translate to the regular season? That's what I bet you if you ask John Harbaugh this question right here, would you trade those wins to be able to beat Pittsburgh twice this year and beat Cleveland twice and get to the Super Bowl or get to the conference championship or have 2 playoff games at home? Answer is yes. It's great that they're doing this in the preseason. Again, I think the Baltimore Ravens are a very great organization, run a really good program, and John Harbaugh, Coach Harbaugh, is a great coach. I think he would trade all those preseason wins to have a few more playoff wins. He would trade all those preseason wins not to have lost to Buffalo last year in the playoffs, not to have lost to the Tennessee Titans the year before in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And yeah, winning 19 straight preseason games to me is like winning the Grapefruit League or the Cactus League in baseball. I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't even know if you can draw much of a conclusion off of that, even in baseball, because I mean, we've seen the Nationals and the Orioles, have like so spring trainings and that kind of thing, and make the playoffs. 2 years ago, they won the World Series, and everybody's like, oh yeah, they're going to dominate spring training. No, they're not. That's like, who cares? Just stop already. But with the Ravens, the only reason why I would say it would make a difference is that it does say something about building depth, and that's something. If you look at their roster, and especially this year, I think they really need to have some kind of depth, to beat Pittsburgh once, if not twice, to win that division, because that's the one thing. It's like, if Lamar gets knocked out, God forbid, who do you turn to a quarterback? If one of your running backs goes down, and that was a problem down the stretch last year, who do you turn to? I mean, where do you shift the focus? That's the only reason why it should matter in terms of building depth.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely building depth, and like I said, they have a really good team, and I think they're going to be somebody to be reckoned with this year. But Pittsburgh is going to be tough this year, and I think Cleveland's going to have a little bit of something to say about who wins that division this year.
Yeah. So, John, how much boxing or UFC have you followed here recently?
UFC, I don't follow as much. And I've just started recently getting back into the boxing thing. I was really into the boxing thing back in the 80s, to be honest with you, Gary, during the glory years of Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Benitez, Duran, but I've been getting back into it. You've had some good fighters since then. I'm not trying to discredit them. You've had Mayweather, you've had Pacquiao, you've got Canelo Alvarez fighting right now. Is doing a great job. Heavyweight divisions, you've had Klitschko's. You've had some good fighters. Tyson Fury, you've had some good fighters. This past Saturday, you had maybe, Gary, maybe you saw the last of a great gladiator. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I think we have seen the last of a great gladiator, and it in its time. When you mentioned all of those boxers, John, and of that group, Pacquiao is still fighting. On the one hand, it says something about his longevity or whatever, but from the replays, from the highlights that I saw, it's time for him to call it a career as a boxer and become the politician that he is back home. Nothing about his legacy is tarnished, and I think the most impressive thing about Saturday night, from his standpoint, is that he recognized it might be time to hang him up. I mean, it's like. He got beat. He acknowledged he got beat. There were no excuses. I mean, he talked about an injury, but he got beat. And I think he understands it. His glory days are past. His hanging on this long, I'm not saying anything bad about him in that, because I think he really wanted to hang it up after those Mayweather fights. I really do. But the money was just too good for him to pass up. I mean, in fact, it's like, I forgot how much he got paid for this one, but the demand was still there for him. That's the thing that's amazing to me. And just like it might be for Mayweather, if he wanted to fight again. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because boxing is just like starved for a superstar, or something, that they still keep looking to some of these retread champions and everything to draw an audience, especially as opposed to UFC. But the fact that he's still fighting says a lot about his longevity, and the fact that he can still collect these multi-million-dollar paydays, even though he might not really want them.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I think one of the things that I see and I preface this by saying I need to educate myself more on the UFC. But one of the things I see, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Gary, UFC, those fighters are going to fight each other. There's no holding back. I'm going to wait to fight Gary Graves until the money gets really good. You know, Gary Graves and John are going. They're going to boogie. They're going to do that thing, and they're going to get in the octagon and make it happen. In boxing now, it's more about the leverage of money, getting paid. You know, so you don't have, like I said, back in the '80s, Leonard fought Hearns, Leonard fought Hagler, Leonard fought Duran. Hearns fought Hagler, Hearns fought Duran, Hearns fought Leonard. Duran fought Hagler, Duran fought Hearns, Duran fought Leonard, Duran fought Benitez. My point is, everybody was fighting everybody. Everybody, it was no, I want to avoid this one until I get paid this. Now, you don't have a lot of these great fighters. And the reason that you have Pacquiao still hanging around and can get money, or the reason that Mayweather could come back and make money, they are still the recognized names. They're still the recognized names. Prime example, Gary, and I'm not going to put you on the spot with it. Welterweights. Name the other welterweight champions. You got Earl Spence. You got Sean Porter. You got Terrence Crawford. Like I said, I'm not putting you on the spot. That wasn't my point, Gary.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But the thing is, they're not household names. You don't know. Right now, you're trying to get Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter to fight, and now you got to put out to a purse bid because you couldn't come to agreement with the promoter. Will the fight happen? We don't know. But should it happen? Yes, it should happen.
Yeah.
Pacquiao and Earl Spence. Earl Spence is looked upon as pound for pound one of the best. Unfortunately, he had a detached retina. He couldn't fight. I don't know if he's ever going to fight again with a detached retina. But my point is, in this division of welterweights, you have some really great fighters. But the thing is, can you get them in the ring to fight each other? How long did it take us to see Pacquiao and Mayweather, Gary? How many years before it finally happened? And when it finally happened, it really should not have happened because Pacquiao got really beat that night. Not beat up, but he really got beat.
Yeah. Well, the problem why it took so long comes down to promotion. I mean, there was an audience there, but that's what boxing is missing. They're missing that big name promoter. You don't have Bob Arum walking through that door. You don't have Don King walking through that door. And I think that's really the biggest problem with boxing right now. It's not so much a fall off in quality. It's just that nobody knows, as opposed to UFC. And I'm not a UFC expert by any stretch. It's just that the guys who are promoting UFC. It's on Fox. It's on ESPN every week. I mean, and you have a UFC 378 or something like that coming up, where you can almost set your watch by it. And I have friends who plan on going to sports bars to watch some of these things. It's all about promotion. And I think that's the biggest thing with boxing. There are quality boxers in every division, but you just don't know about them. And I'm talking about overseas. I'm not talking about just here in the United States. And that's something that really, really needs to improve. Hey, before we run out of time here, let's go to what our viewers want to know about. So, John Pitt, what you got for us this week?
Okay, this week we got Tevin from Hyattsville, Maryland. Tevin asks, with the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC set to form an alliance, does that hurt these conferences or does it help?
I looked at it, Gary. Think about this now. Are you ready for this, Gary?
I'm ready.
If the Pac-12, Big Ten, and ACC form a merger or alliance, that is 40 teams in that conference. I said 40, 40. And then the SEC is going to have 16 when Oklahoma and Texas come over. And then they're going to end up with even more because guess who else is going to want to come over? You're going to have some other teams that want to come over. So I just wish there was some kind of sheriff in town that could rein this in some, Gary. Right now, you don't have anybody. It's do what you want, do whatever you want. There is no laws or regulations to stop this. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, but there needs to be some type of procedures and policies in place so it's just not all over the place.
Well, John, I'm going to go back to like the Godfather with this. You know, you have to sit down the heads of the 5 football families at a table, and you have to come to just some kind of agreement to how to make this work. Because in all seriousness, you can't have an SEC with 20 teams and then have another alliance with 40 teams. That's bigger than the daggone NFL. You can't have it. You've got to figure out, you know, the way that they need to make this work, if they're talking about it. Think about how, and I would say minor league baseball made it work on the AAA level. I mean, you had the American Association, you had the Pacific Coast League. You know, I forgot what the one on the on the East Coast. You had like 4, and it was cross divisional play, you know, cross league play. I don't know if you use that same kind of thing, but it would be so unwieldy in terms of scheduling, in terms of strength of schedule, that, you know, you would again, who would have the advantage? I would say an alliance like that would definitely lift the profile for the Pac-10. It needs to, I'm sorry, the Pac-12. I keep saying that, but they need their profile lifted in terms of the playoff. And again, a lot of it will be determined by how big this playoff becomes. I think if it expands to, you know, what is it? It's possibly as many as 12 teams. I think that's the last thing I heard. Then you better say goodbye to the bowl system as we know it. And in a way, I won't miss the Poland Weed Eater Bowl. Okay. But the whole thing, and again, I know we've got to wrap up, is that I worry about the harm that it would do to the next 5 conferences and then the 5 after that.
This is what I'll say, and then I'll make it quick because I know I can be long-winded, Gary. Go back to the Godfather. That's the first thing you say. Godfather sitting at the table, and they have, what are they called, consigliaries or bosses or whatever they're called. Okay, Big 12's got to be chopped out the equation. That's the first thing. Next thing that happens, you go with 4 super conferences, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 10. Top it off at 20 teams in each one. That's all you get, 20, each one of them. Then you go with, that's 80 teams. You go with a 12-team playoff. That's what you do. You can't get rid of my bowl games, Gary. That's what I was brought up on. You can't get rid of my bowl game. I still need to see the Furniture Bowl and the Poland Weed Eater Independence Bowl. I still need to see those games. Okay, there's a place at the table for them as well, Gary.
Is this a way so we can see our Maryland Terrapins maybe in postseason in some way, shape, or form?
Hey, man.
When you said the Furniture Bowl and you couldn't even remember the title of it, that tells me when you got 37 bowls, that's way too many. But hey, that's over our pay grades, at least for this week and everything. We can definitely revisit that. Hey, folks, it's been a lot of fun. We really, really enjoy your support. Tell all your friends. Look for us on YouTube. Look for us on Facebook. John Webster, thank you so much for the repartee. John Pitt, thank you for being the traffic cop that we need. And thank you, folks, for submitting questions. We will be back next week with the Deuce. Peace.
Hey, you guys take care. Had a great time with everybody. John Pitt, take care. Gary Graves, you take care. Everybody have a great week and be safe.